every single time. Every single time I have to set and reset the microphone.
That's weird. There you go.
Does it sound okay? Let me know how that sounds.
You sound muffled.
I sound muffled?
Yeah.
I swear to God.
It might be that you have to turn up the gain a little bit and just be away from it. Because it sounds muffled if you have the gain turned, like if you have it turned down.
Okay. Well, see, this is what you get when you come into this type of with me. Abby said she can hear me now, which is good. Hi, Abby. Good to see you. Even if my voice is super muffled and stuff, I'm trying to figure it out. Susan is not giving me any feedback currently.
I'm trying to listen to you.
She's trying to listen to me. I don't recommend that. Well,
I think it sounds way better.
It does sound better?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry.
I was like, I saw myself on her screen over there because Susan's sitting right there. I saw myself on her screen and I was done talking, and then she was still sitting there, and I was like, is it better? Is it worse? Susan and I were chatting the other day, as we are wont to do, about the current Russian invasion of Ukraine. And there was this video this video that's rather popular, for good reason, of this Ukrainian grandma, I think, and she was talking to / berating one of the people who were invading her country, and she gave this Russian soldier, some sunflower seeds, and was like, I don't remember her exact words, but very much like, so that the Ukraine can regrow and use your dead body as fertilizer, right? Something of that nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
make yourself useful.
Yeah, I'm really white on your screen. Like, I look really pale on her screen. I look really pale on my screen. Oh man, like I do. Oh well. That's what you're gonna get. That's how I look. Sickly, jaundiced.
No, then you look yellow.
And well, look at my screen.
You don't look yellow.
I do. I look whiter than normal. But this lady, she said put it in your pocket, and then had I been a Russian soldier, right, at that point, had I been the commander of this, at that point in this campaign, I would have looked at my soldiers and been like, guys, it's time to leave.
Yeah.
Back away slowly. Keep your hands where they can see them. It's time to go back to Russia. Not dealing with this. This grandma has probably put landmines everywhere. The sunflowers are probably all poisoned. We're all gonna die. It's over with. And holy moly, have the Ukrainians, the citizenry. You get the folks here in the United States, and yes, I'm going to get to the book review in a second, but you get to the folks in the United States who are like, we're going to defend our motherfucker. There is nothing close to what these folks, they're making like hedgehogs out of basic stuff they just happen to find lying around the house. Oh, cell phone, put 3 together, it'll stop the tanks. And when they were making, this guy opened up this, you look underneath this blanket, what do you have? He had 2,000 Molotovs, right?
Yes.
And Anderson Cooper was like, whoa. That was Anderson, Keanu Cooper was like,
Anderson Reeves.
yeah, he was like, my gosh. And they're just like, yeah, this is how you build this, and we had to put extra stuff in it to make it stickier, Coca-Cola probably. And he's like, oh yeah, we made these spiked strips too. And they're just like these things. This guy was like, yeah, I was a construction worker until last week, and then we got invaded, and so now I'm just, I don't know, making stuff out of my basement. And or the people that are there, and you see like the missiles hitting these other apartment complexes, and they're eating breakfast, and you can still hear them eating breakfast while these literal missiles are just like hammering, doing war crime stuff, right? Like George W. Bush type stuff, into these other buildings, and they're just like, well, I guess we'll go check it out when we get done eating. And I'm just like, man, like, yeah, this stuff. I think I also mentioned that Vlad continues to assert that Ukraine and the Ukrainians are Russian. Don't remember it, but I remember reading about Stalingrad. And I put this on Twitter, where I was like, dude, the Germans completely surrounded Stalingrad, right? It was the Fifth Army. The German Fifth Army completely surrounded Stalingrad. And 90% of it was shelled, razed to the ground. And even then, the Russians still won. All right? You don't want to call them Russians while you're trying to surround their city like the Nazis did.
No.
Like, if anything, you should be like, I don't know, guys. It's maybe have a different plan. Maybe don't try to invade Russia in the winter.
It's a bit cold.
Yeah. This is some of the dumbest shit. Also, maybe just don't do what you're doing right now. And also, hey, fellow Western, white people, maybe we should focus a little bit more on the fact that this also happens in other places where there are like, not a bunch of white people. I don't know.
I don't think they want to.
No, they're definitely not gonna.
Yeah, no.
But more to the point, if you will, my camera is following me around, finally. It does it when it wants to.
Yeah, it doesn't always do it. It's funny.
When I want it to, it doesn't do it.
No.
But I just like look down, look back up, and my camera's like targeting me like fucking Terminator.
You're forced to grab it.
Yeah. The sour corner. Ben Shapiro went from such a fun conversation to Ben King Shapiro. He wrote a book. I like how he's the #1 New York Times best-selling author. I keep mentioning that because you're a best. You're not the #1. There, a camera followed me. It doesn't know what to do. But I have been for months now reading this book, and I've been reading this book for months. Don't ever tell me that my videos are a little bit long-winded. You don't have to read this fucking book. All right? And I don't go over everything either. It's like every single sentence that he writes is somehow propagandizing something, and also constantly trying to I don't know, lie.
Yeah.
Constantly trying to lie. Constantly. Yeah. Like all the time. It's if I went over every single one of them, we'd still be like, I could make a video every single day and we'd still like be barely into chapter 1. But we're going to get to chapter 2 in just a moment. But I want to take a second or two to note 2 topics that are rather prevalent throughout the book, and they both are in the first chapter, and so I didn't get a chance to mention them the last time that I did one of these videos. I don't know, October. And the first of these is the idea of what he calls Re-Normalization. And yes, this is what it says, and it's very long, and I'm going to read this. Don't worry, none of the other slides are this long. Feel free to pause so you can read it as I read it as well. Did you pause? Good. The answer. This is what Mr. Shapiro writes. The answer lies in a process that author Nassim Nicholas Taleb, probably messed up the last name, labels re-normalization. This process allows a motivated minority to cow a uninterested majority into going along to get along. Taleb gives a simple example. A family of 4, including one daughter who eats only organic. Mom now has a choice. She can cook 2 meals, one for the non-organic family members. Odd that you would have them as family members. You would think that something would need to be organic to be people.
I was hoping it's where you were going with that one.
Like, oh my gosh. I didn't write that in the script, by the way. I just, there were some times where I was reading this and I was like, organic and non-organic. Maybe we should talk about organic food and make it so that it's rather specific. Otherwise, you're talking about I don't know, Nazi zombies or something. Or zombies that are in the Marvel universe. I'll get back to that at the end. Please remind me. One for the non-organic family members and one for her daughter. Or she can cook 1 meal with only organic ingredients. Side note, all food is organic. She decided to cook only 1 meal. This is renormalization of the family unit, which has converted from majority non-organic to universally organic. Now, says Taleb.
How's it spelled?
Taleb. Taleb.
You're asking the girl who took Excel in high school.
I learned my pronunciation from John Green. And he is the first to note that mispronouncing things is his thing.
It's true.
I learned it from him. Blame it on John Green. DFTBA. And have the family attend a barbecue attended by 3 other families. The host has to make the same choice Mom did. And the host chooses to cook organic food for everyone. The process of renormalization, the new normal, continues until broader and broader numbers have been moved by the intransient person. Okay, that's a super cool analogy, Ben, but nobody is forcing anybody to only eat organic food. The mother could have had a choice, or she actually did have a choice, to cook only organic, but that doesn't mean only organic food was allowed. Others could bring their own food. In fact, if you're coming to a cookout, bring your own food. Bring something for everybody to enjoy. And I'm not talking about potato salad. Like food that people actually enjoy. Do that. I'm talking about, I don't care what Mom makes, right? If anybody's going to make any food, I want it to be Deadpool at the grill because I have that Funko Pop and I would love to see it. Kiss the cook, apparently. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's backyard griller Deadpool or something. I don't know. I've got it somewhere. We'll see. They're probably one of the ones that fell down the other day. Others could and should bring their own food, or they can choose to not eat at all. That's a bit of a comparison to people who, let's go back to 2016, right? Where you had the choice, if you are a Democrat or on the liberal side of things, you had a choice. Hillary Clinton, I didn't mean to choke laugh, but Bernie Sanders, and then apparently other people also were Democrats that ran for president. I don't remember any of the other ones. Do you? No, of course you don't. And then after the choice became Hillary Clinton, so you had the choice there. You could go and you could vote for Hillary Clinton. You could go and you could vote for Bernie Sanders, or you could not eat at all. You could choose to not be involved in the process and then help Donald Trump be elected for president, you horrible person. It wasn't you. Like, not just like you. She voted independent. Okay, she voted for the marijuana guy.
2012.
Oh, who'd you vote for in 2016? Was it
Hillary Clinton.
Was it 20? Oh,
2012. I voted for Gary Johnson.
that's right.
The one who doesn't know where it was.
Was it Gary Johnson with Aleppo? Because
Yes.
Aleppo was 2016.
No. Well, I mean, yes, you're right.
Did he also? Oh, yeah, that's right. He ran again, like on the.
He
He's
runs
like the-
every year.
It's like the Green Party. He does. He's a Forrest Gump of politics.
Yes.
Take that one, and that was all right off the cuff.
Nice.
Yeah, but I appreciate that. I think we lost Abby. Darn it. But that's the thing. Everybody had the choice to do that. Now, mind you, did it come down to either or? Sure. But we had the choice getting there as well. As flawed as our electoral process is, and it is,
Yeah.
it was created that way by a bunch of white dudes, most of whom owned people. Maybe we should reform this. By the way, first feminist in American history, as far as we can tell, Abigail fucking Adams. Abigail Adams wrote to her husband, whose name
John Adams.
I know him, and was like, I urge you in these talks of independence not to forget the ladies. She said that. And John Adams was like, look here, sit down in your petticoat, I'll decide what's happening.
Damn, dude.
Like, straight up. That was kind of how that went. And Abigail was like, yo, fuck you, bro. Wait till you come home for the summer because you don't have a real job anyways.
It's true.
Angelica, tell my wife. So they make this as if it is a dichotomy that you either choose to acquiesce to these demands of a part of your family that is choosing to have a different lifestyle when it comes to food, or everybody goes and eats organic food, and I remember when Susan and I first started dating. This was before I almost died, right?
Oh, so it was right when we started it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. We went to Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
This was when, and there are a lot of times now I do still try to do things that are pretty close to vegan. I do. I don't drink milk at all, pretty much. It's very rare, right? I could never give up cheese though. That was just vegan cheese just isn't there yet.
Yeah.
Veganese is better than mayonnaise. But at that time, I was 100% vegan. And went to Thanksgiving with, this back when we celebrated the holiday. We don't celebrate it anymore for reasons. And we were not celebrating prior to the fact that other white people didn't know. They figured out that, maybe we probably shouldn't have done all of that to people. And do you know what happened? I went there and I said, you know what? I'm not going to eat any of this turkey nonsense. And you know what Susan's, was it your aunt and uncle? Cousins. You know what they said? Cool. All right. And guess what? I brought my own food.
Yeah, we bought you a tofurkey.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was difficult to read.
Was it a tofurkin?
Honestly, you could have told me it was anything. I've been like, all right.
You wouldn't remember.
No, and I brought my own food. And guess what? Guess what didn't happen? They didn't force me to eat their food. In fact, they were very, very kind about the entire thing. And so I guess that at that point I would have been the person, we're going to re-normalize you. But guess what? Guess what I didn't do? I didn't say, guess what? You can only eat this. So we had a mutual respect for one another. This is also much like right now. in American politics, specifically inside of the Democratic Party. So you have a choice to be Joe Manchin, right?
Why would I want to do that?
And that's right there. You don't have to be Joe Manchin,
Good choice.
but you also don't have to be Bernie Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Who's considered the furthest left in the Senate, at least.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. You can be anywhere on that political spectrum. And as I've mentioned multiple times, and I went over this years ago before most of the rest of you even heard of him or Kyrsten Sinema, and I said, the Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema vote to the right of somebody like Lindsey Graham. And guess what? It's okay to not be either of them. It's definitely okay to not be Lindsey Graham, right? Unless you just want to have probably, I don't know. It's not like the best accent in the Senate. That definitely goes to the senator from Vermont. He's like, I really feel like we should socialize my accent and give it to everybody. You know, that like best one. Far and away the best one. And that's not an opinion. These are objective facts that I'm stating right now. But nobody is saying you can only be this. There are pushes further, and this is something I get into in like a little bit in just a moment, but there is the push that's more progressive, right? You have a large part of the Democratic Party is more progressive. You look at the people who made it furthest out of the 2020 presidential or Democratic presidential primaries, and you look at them, look at the folks who dropped out, earlier on. There's a lot of centrist candidates. And then you look at somebody like Elizabeth Warren, she and Amy Klobuchar was more to the center, but Elizabeth Warren, who I voted for in the primary, was really against Bernie Sanders. You were choosing which of the progressive candidates would kind of end up losing to Joe Biden, which we already knew was going to happen anyways. But the choice was still there to choose that. There's nothing that says you have to be far left. But now far left in the United States is almost centrist pretty well everywhere else. So it's not like we're inventing progressivism, or this idea of, I don't know, everybody should have access to healthcare. That's not something we're doing. So maybe we should not write the book about American progressivism, but maybe talk about how we're developing, quote unquote, American exceptionalism, a model that is based upon others. We do have the oldest democratic constitution, that current democratic constitution, sure. But it's not like the ideas are new. We base this stuff upon the House of Burgesses, and we base this stuff upon things that were kind of going on in France.
Fran. I only got Fran out.
It's fine.
I didn't say France.
So these ideas that, you're going to be shunned into silence if you don't, like Medicare for all is still considered a quote unquote fringe idea. And it is constantly batted down by Democrats because Democrats don't want to give people health care either, for the most part. Kind of feel like healthcare is a human right, and it's enumerated in the United Nations Charter, the United Nations something of human rights. Sorry,
Declaration of Human Rights?
Yeah, there you go. So, but Ben thinks this only begins with one request before moving into more and more requests. Something folks in the 1930s Europe would call appeasement of the obviously far left Adolf Hitler. Until the, quote, intolerant leftist authoritarians, I love how Ben writes. It's such good propaganda. he continues saying those words, right? It's a reinforcement. It's a good sales technique all the time. That's why they say phone numbers, like 1-800-CASH for
877
spelled.
cash now.
Yeah, and one that's cash for kids, cash for cars.
Cars for kids.
See,
With
you
Ks.
you know it because it makes sense that there's a couple of K's there. You know it because the jingle, right? It says it over and over again. This is the same thing. It reinforces the idea. They gain enough power to do the unthinkable, convince large corporations, who I will remind you are apparently people, to invest in an all-out evil, diversity and inclusion training. Insert gasp and woman screaming in terror here. This includes ultra woke, definition still requested, Coca-Cola. A company with over 80,000 employees training its workforce to be, quote, less white in fully racist fashion, noting, this is written right here, this is something that he wrote, noting that to be, quote, less white means to be, quote, less arrogant, less certain, less defensive, less ignorant, and more humble. And claiming that this discriminatory content was designed to enhance, quote, inclusion. Now, that does seem kind of the requirement and this idea seems a little bit fringe, right? It does. At least the word usage and maybe the ideas of being less white, which I don't think is possible. Now, mind you, I guess, like, if you were to be me and never go outside or always wear sunscreen, maybe, but they're talking about these ideas of being less white as maybe not looking at things from the perspective of a privileged white person or a privileged white me, which is the subject, which is true. I think it's a good idea in order to have diversity and inclusion to consider the idea. Now, mind you, this is an in-depth and something that I was speaking with last night in a video, right? Where I was also kind of, and Susan can verify this. We're talking about critical race theory. Most of the people that talk about it and rail against it haven't read anything about it outside of footnotes from Rufo and James Lindsay. Exactly. Or Candace Owens, who says that racism doesn't exist in the United States, even though she was a victim of a hate crime. Hey, Russ, it is so great to see you, my friend, again and again. Of course, Candace Owens also says that because she's pro-life, I'm not going to say that you're not, okay, that it triggers her liberal friends. See, I know so well that it's a lie that I can't even say it. That yes, we're so triggered by you being pro-life. Candace Owens, person who said as well in front of Congress, because you were for some reason invited to fucking Congress. Never mind. So was, what's his name up here? Provocateur who pretended to have a British accent. Andy Ngo was invited to Congress as well. So I guess we elected Madison Cawthorn. So we don't really have, the floor just, it's descended into lava at this point.
The bar is so low, it's in hell.
Yeah. And even hell is like, whoa, keep us out of this. Like, even here, look, the devil, like Hasatan is sitting there going, Don't you put me in the same reptilians? Really?
Don't you
Really? You gonna try first? You try to say that I'm a snake, okay? Not in the metaphoric sense either. You just try to say that I'm a snake, but now you do the reptilian thing, and then you talk about aliens and Jewish space lasers. Look, even I wasn't a fan of the Holocaust. All right, I never tried to kill Jewish people. Right? If anything, I was trying to convince this Jesus fella to save a bunch of Jewish people. Read your books.
True.
QAnon. What even is? Look, I didn't bring up QAnon because some of the things actually would have come true if it were me. Because I was created as an entity that understands the past, present, and future, and definitely like a demigod at least. So
you're Dr. Manhattan?
Ma'am, I live in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is a devil in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's Mephisto. Is there one in the DC non-movie universe? But like,
I don't know.
The light over here is making me look whiter.
It's like it's coming through even more.
Your mic is a bit low. My mustache is finally, first off, thank you. My mustache is finally coming back in. Let me know if it sounds a little better. Because
You might just have to turn it up in Streamlabs.
Yeah, let me try that because...
Just like a skosh.
Yep. Because last time I got to, like, whenever I was doing the video where I showed objective fact that Jim Majors is guilty of child abuse, and it became kind of distorted at times. So please let me know if this sounds better. So this includes Coca-Cola, as I mentioned, right? And it's part of it. If you look at it to go back to this, it is a bit higher. Thank you. Where I have books on books about critical race theory. They're back here. There's a bookshelf. I built it from scratch. Susan helped. Sorry. From where I have these books about James Baldwin. How many of you have ever heard of James Baldwin? Or Derek Bell becomes a let me just put it up here because maybe it'll not be. I should probably turn that part off when I do this. But this one's just sitting there, and like, oh my gosh, there's so many books that are. I have more books on like anti-racism and the history of critical race theory and the history of the United States, like the maybe we should talk about this than I do about Christian scholarship. At least in hard, non-digital format. But I have books about the history of critical race theory when it comes to education, the history of critical race theory when it comes to and racism in the United States when it comes to museums and architecture and things like that. And so I actually have a working knowledge, and have had for a couple of years, about critical race theory. And even I can tell you, I don't even know that I'm scratching the surface. And so it's interesting when folks like Christopher Rufo, who again is on the advisory board of, what is it, Atheists for Liberty, who was at CPAC. Wait, who was? The organization who attended CPAC with David Silverman, noted liberal. David, he left the left because he was held accountable for his actions. Same thing as everybody else. That's what happens. Or you just run away whenever, confronted with your, not just your past, but your current actions. Seems relevant. But they were at CPAC. And of course, Michael Shermer. That's his name, right? It is Michael Shermer? Yeah. And then also Michael Sherlock, who, let's just say, uses ableist slurs, especially at KC from Godless Engineers, the family there. I think she's the head of operations or something at Godless Engineer. I may get that wrong. I'm sorry, but who is pretty well an advocate for the overall of and an ally to victims and stuff. But they were at James Lindsay is on that as well. CPAC, where David Silverman took a photo with Kevin Sorbo, in which he said that he was excited to find out that he was the inspiration for the professor in the first God's Not Dead film. I guess if you're going to be an inspiration for anything, be an inspiration for a straw man of a character, because you're definitely a straw man of a person.
Damn.
And he also said that Kevin Sorbo is pro-choice. Somebody's lying here.
And it's
I was going to say, I don't think it's Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah.
But I know more about this stuff than certainly most non-academic white folks. I think that is a fair assessment, right? And again, I'm still like barely on the surface. Kimberly Crenshaw looks at me and goes, "Mm-hmm." And also, somebody like Ibram Kendi is anti-racism, which is not the same thing as critical race theory. So, but the things put forward, I wish that I would have heard about these transgressions by Coca-Cola, because that's seemingly something that, at least on the surface, I would probably stand in opposition to. And I think at least saying, hey, maybe we should provide some more nuance to this, right? But Ben, how can I find out more about this travesty of Coca-Cola, noted for probably still having cocaine in their drinks? They don't. Well, thankfully, Ben provides a source. I am always just so excited when people provide sources. It's a bit higher right now, by the way. It comes back and it's like, good for you, microphone. But thank you, Ben. Thank you for the source. I'm going to use it now. As it turns out, it's from February of 2021. It's from an article in February 2021 from ultra-leftist woke publication Newsweek, entitled "Coca-Cola Facing Backlash," says, quote, "Be Less White," that's the name of the learning plan, was about workplace inclusion. An employee at the company shared the information with Karlin Borisenko, a social media personality who has a video about why I left the left, and also said in December 21 that Jewish people chose to die in the Holocaust.
Dear Lord.
And that also Hitler's not in hell. Which I agree with.
Yeah.
Hell doesn't exist. And she actually does say that, but saying that the Jewish people were, yeah, let's go and be volunteers in a ethnic cleansing, in a fucking genocide. Seems like maybe you shouldn't say that, but she made a big deal out of it. Coca-Cola responded and said, ahem, part of a learning plan the course is part of a learning plan to help build an inclusive workplace, but also noted the video circulating on social media is from a publicly available LinkedIn learning series and is not a focus of our company's curriculum. Our Better Together global learning curriculum is part of a learning plan to help build, I read that again, an inclusive workplace. It is comprised of a number of short vignettes, each a few minutes long. The training includes access to LinkedIn learning on a variety of topics, including diversity and inclusion. Also said it's not required. You don't have to take that, but you can. if you choose to. But that's interesting. Not required, you say. Offered not by Coca-Cola, but by a third party, you say. People can choose to enjoy their non-woke, still looking for a definition of the word woke, by the way, have never received it. Outside of, thank you liberals for giving me the sarcastic versions. I do enjoy them very much. And also conservatives who, never mind, you guys don't do that. But, people can choose to enjoy their anti-woke Coca-Cola products. And I'm not just talking about the new apparently starved space-flavored drink they have. They literally have a drink that came out, I think, last week or a couple of weeks ago that tastes like space.
Oh, Starlight. I think I have a coupon for a free one.
Yeah, I'm guessing it tastes like sunlight. I don't know. Or it tastes like asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. No. Honestly, yeah, I hope it's the second. It'd be like, yes, finally. But Ben, it seems like you're being, and this is not, I didn't make this up. This is one of the ones I didn't make up. But Ben, it seems like you're being disingenuous, or if you will, disingenuous. Cody Johnston with that one. Which is odd for a guy whose trademark is something about facts and feelings. And side note, people really need to stop, because, by the way, this course was put together by Robin DiAngelo. People need to stop referring to somebody like Robin DiAngelo as somebody who creates, quote, anti-racist content. She doesn't at all. She's not an anti-racist. I don't even recommend her books. Ever. In fact, I actually say you probably shouldn't get this. Except for the White Fragility title. I definitely recommend that, because nothing says I'm confident in my positions like a bunch of white people falling fucking apart because of the phrase that's on the front cover and is the title of a book. Way to make the point. But then the literal next sentence has to do with the Overton window, which I constantly say, more Overton, please. Or more... I say it to myself, as you can tell. Susan's never heard it before. Or more specifically, shutting said window. Great play on words, Ben. Please teach me how to write like you do. I'm serious. I love your propaganda. And the absolute irony here, especially considering what he had to say about why they need to stop those, quote, diversity and inclusion training courses, is just peak Ben. It's like a mountain, Mount Shapiro. And the peak of that mountain is irony. Ben climbs up this mountain all the time. He's in good shape. It takes him a long time to climb this. It usually takes him a long time to climb this mountain, because his stride is shorter than mine.
Damn.
I'm not going to make any short jokes, because Ben wouldn't be able to understand the reach. He wouldn't, because sometimes, you got a little bit of a reach. Ben can't.
That's, to ask you not to make short jokes about Ben Shapiro, that's a tall order, honey.
What was the joke I made the other day? I said that I had to write it down because I didn't want to forget it.
Oh, was it about Ben Shapiro?
Oh, no, it was about the Republican platform. I made it last night.
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing... it's like the Republican platform. There's nothing colorful in it.
Yeah.
It's also, like I said, hello, it is Ryla, right? That is...
I think it's Rilla?
Rilla. I'm so sorry. I know that I pronounce it incorrectly all the time, and I apologize. But it's similar to Mitch McConnell. Now that he is no longer the Senate Majority Leader, he now has an opportunity for the first time in his life to care about minorities. But it isn't far off when he defines the Overton window as, quote, the window of acceptable discourse in which rational discussion can take place. Sure, I'll take that. It's a bit more nuanced, but you're not a fan of nuance, and so I'm not going to really kind of get into the weeds with that in this sentence. Of course, the Overton window cannot be used in the terms of left-right, because Overton, who unfortunately died in a plane crash at the age of 43, I think it was back in the early 90s, he made the Overton window as vertical. The x-axis is vertical, specifically to avoid the comparisons of left-right politics. But go ahead, Ben. Tell us how the Overton window has to do with left-right politics. Now, what's funny, because I've spoken about this, is that Ben, throughout his book so far, has interchanged the words liberal and leftist. He's used them to make them seem like the same thing. And this is an actual distinction that he makes between liberals and leftists, saying the only difference is, quote, asking whether those who disagree ought to be silenced. Okay, so that's an outright lie. And I went over the differences along with the scholarly sources that I provided in my previous video, which I'm thinking again was like in October. It was in the old house, so before the beginning of November. But okay, again, Ben, provide your example. The American...
I just noticed you said a Ben.
Yeah. The American Civil Liberties Union, or as I call it, the ACLU, for example, used to be liberal. Stop using the phrase used to be. Please. Like, if you're watching this, you don't have to pronounce the H and we're good. Okay, thank you. Was once. I just don't like the phrase. Stop using it. Stop it. It stood up for the right of Nazis to march through Skokie, Illinois. Now, however, the ACLU is fully leftist. In 2018, the American Civil Liberties Union, again, I like to call them the ACLU, promulgated, thank you, Ben, for using my acronym, promulgated an internal memo explaining, quote, our defense of speech may have a greater or lesser harmful impact on the equality and justice work to which we are also committed. We should make every effort to consider the consequences of our actions. Number 12 there seems important. So the ACLU is leftist. All right. Okay. It's interesting you would use that example, but you know, I actually see those multiple ellipses, which is, I believe, the plural for ellipsis. All I know is that it is impossible for me to make an ellipsis or an ellipsis even on Microsoft Paint. And I wonder if there might be more context, and thankfully, again, or Ben, you provide a source. Thank you so much for always doing that. This is from the ACLU's organization's considerations specific to speech cases. Now, again, apologies for this long slide here, but I think the context is important, and I've highlighted the part that Ben used. This seems like it's part of a larger paragraph. It says, in the proposed speech, the potential effect of on marginalized communities, the extent to which the speech, the precedent... Whoa, I did, didn't I?
I don't know. I haven't paused.
Yep, I'm buffering a little bit. I buffered a little bit.
I think you're good.
Yep, I can see it again. Apologies for the buffering, but you can see it on screen. Depending on the breadth or viewpoint-based character of the suppression, the precedent that allowing suppression might create for the rights of other speakers and the impact of the credibility of the ACLU as a staunch and principled defender of free speech. Many of these impacts will be difficult, if not impossible, to measure, and none of them should be dispositive. Stupid lawyers using big words. But as an organization equally committed to free speech and equality, we should make every effort to consider the consequences of our actions, that's the part Ben used, for constitutional law, for the community in which the speech will occur, and for the speaker and others whose speech might be suppressed in the future. And then in their very next sentence, which thankfully is not a bentence, says, the extent to which we are able to make clear that even as we defend a speaker's right to say what they want, we reserve the right to condemn the views themselves. While the ACLU vigorously defends the right to free speech of those who espouse views antithetical to our own, we also reserve the right to condemn those views. Our defense of free speech rests squarely on the proposition that speech deserves defending, even if we or others in the community find it reprehensible. Accordingly, as a general matter, we should be able to simultaneously defend a speaker's right to speak and condemn their views, and we should seek to preserve that right through ethically appropriate representation agreements. Gosh, Ben, it seems like maybe you represented the American Civil Liberties Union and their stances on who to defend and not defend, while even in your example, you said that they defended the Nazis' right to march in Illinois, which is true. Also of note, the leftist ACLU is right now in an amicus briefing before the United States Supreme Court, or again, as an acronym that I created, SCOTUS, representing Boston, Massachusetts group Camp Constitution.
Constitution.
Yeah. Or, if you will, CC. Closed caption. A group whose request to have their flag flown for 1 hour in front of the Boston City Hall was denied by the city because it has a religious symbol on it. Now that might make you say, yeah, it's a religious symbol. Fair point, but the city had granted every single one of the 284 requests it had received prior to the in the prior 12 years when the request was made. Additionally, because it was just for 1 hour, that's how long it has flown, the different flags, which is on a separate pole. So because they approved separate flags, it would not be seen as the city of Boston, the government of the city of Boston, or of the state of Massachusetts as violating the free or the establishment clause of the Constitution. Which, as you know, super leftist. Super leftist.
Of course.
But, in a quick note, Ben continues to say, shut the Overton window. Except the Overton window can't be shut. It can only be shifted. Again, on a vertical axis. You might not like the way it is shifting, but you're still free to say whatever you want. And this is something that I spoke about earlier when I mentioned Medicaid for all. Senator Bernie Sanders has advocated for universal health care, that thing that like every other country on the planet has except for us, for a very long time, and that was considered fringe. Except now, as more people, including some of those who are independent or centrist, are starting to take it seriously, because as it turns out, the public is like, maybe we should do something about this, the Overton window begins to shift. Again, you might not like the way it is shifting, but that's how it works. The same thing applies, the Overton window, with the Tea Party back in 2010. Because of former President Obama's specifically Affordable Care Act, the Tea Party began to shift the Overton window further to the right, especially with the more extreme elements of conservative Americans, and they were able to wrest away control of Congress from the Democrats. And so it is a constantly shifting window. But to use a phrase that you use often, Ben, let's say, you want to write a book which is dishonest, from page 1 to the appendix, in how you represent authoritarianism and the left. If the Overton window is shut, as you say, how are you able to have this discussion at all? How do you have an audience with an incredibly large platform? Because you then say, quote, on the one hand, there are liberals who still stand for free speech, a phrase which you say a lot but never show how liberals are actually against this free speech, especially in your book, which you wrote and are proud of how well it sells because of said free speech, but digress and such. In June 2020, 153 liberals, this is from his book here, who, ranging from J.K. Rowling to Noam Chomsky, signed a letter decrying the rise of, quote, the intolerant climate that has set in on all sides. These prominent thinkers explained, quote, the free exchange of information and ideas, which is the lifeblood of a liberal society, is daily becoming more constricted. The way to defeat bad ideas is by exposure, argument, and persuasion, not by trying to be silenced or wish them away. Now, Ben calls this a heartening development and notes that, quote, not one Trump supporter, notice how he doesn't say conservative, which is interesting, appeared on the letter, but he doesn't say anything else about conservatives, which, you know, zero conservatives signed on, none of them signed on to a letter literally called a letter on justice and open debate, which is what we're having all the time. It's called Congress, in which they just debate and nobody ever wins, but we lose. Of course, in Ben's noted ellipses, he, for some odd reason, omits the next sentence in which the writers say, while we have come to expect this from the radical right. Again, so odd, Ben. So odd that you, in a book which is facts over feelings, would leave out something such like... I wonder, though, why this letter was written in June of 2020. Was there something that had happened around that time that would lead to the necessity of such a letter? Was there some sort of controversy? Was another unarmed black man murdered in the streets that took, I don't know, like 9 minutes? which led to an incredible civil rights movement, which continues to force us to reconcile with our races past and present, no matter how many white people don't want to do that? Was maybe a famous author of children books involved in some sort of controversy? Was this person part of Dave Chappelle's Team Turf? Questions which I guess we'll never know the answer to. Oh, and while the letter may have been signed, or may not have been signed by any open supporters of the former president, who we elected president, I'd like to recommend you read a more specific letter on justice and open debate. That's the name of it, which was signed by over 160 academics and journalists, some of whom did not place their names because of fear of reprisal from those on the right, which highlights some of the, let's call them shortcomings, that are in the original letter. And then take a look at the list of people who didn't know who else had signed the letter, or that the letter was anything other than, quote, arguing for bolder, more meaningful efforts at racial and gender inclusion in journalism, academia, and the arts. Something which the original letter does not even attempt to accomplish. Link down below in the description. If you're watching this after the fact, I didn't include it right now, sorry. And yes, I recommend taking a look at the letters and considering who might be more in touch with the reality of our current social situation. And also, why the fuck did Noam Chomsky sign it? Ben quotes Noam Chomsky. The guy is like an MLK socialist. If you didn't know, MLK was a socialist. But now, noted historian Ben Shapiro is going to give a history lesson. And I, for one, love history lessons. Seriously, I do. He calls it how the authoritarian left renormalized America. This is why we mentioned renormalized earlier. And I'm not joking when Ben Shapiro literally blames this renormalization on Barack Obama. You know, super far left Barack Obama. Super woke Barack Obama. He blames our current situation on Obama. He blames the Tea Party on Obama. Not the fact that the guy who would succeed him as president, who again we elected the guy and almost did again and probably will in 2 years, constantly promoted conspiracy theories that Obama wasn't even born in the United States and was possibly a Muslim. He certainly didn't stop people when they said that at his rallies, and as if that would matter, because I didn't know that you couldn't be a Muslim. It's almost like it's not written in the Constitution. So yeah, he blamed our current political divide on Obama. Speaking of how Obama was reelected in 2012, Ben says, quote, in building his coalition, Obama no doubt worked a certain political magic. It just so happened that Obama's brew of identity politics and progressive utopianism emboldened an authoritarian leftism that poisoned the body politic. America may never recover. Because Obama in 2012 was such a progressive. Remember that Barack Obama did not begin his career or even his first term with the ideas of marriage equality. Super woke was he. And by the way, he was only convinced of that by a guy named Joe Biden. Weird. It's almost like Joe Biden does some things that are good and bad. But Ben, was Obama's super duper far left wokest utopian ideology before or after a Republican yelled, "You lie," at him during his State of the Union address? Man, I bet nobody's ever going to do anything like that again. Nobody's ever going to interrupt a Democratic president by yelling at him from... God, reality sucks, y'all.
Yeah.
But then Ben also labeled Woodrow Wilson, the guy who was a fan and endorsed the Tucker Carlson version of the KKK. What even is racism? Like, what even is white supremacy? Why is this a word? What even are words? Like, does anybody know? Can anybody define it? Why does my name have 3 Ks? And why does anybody never notice that? Does anybody know the answer to these questions? Have we talked to the Fox and Friends? Have we talked to Peter Ducey about this? I've heard, by the way, I don't know what words are, but I've heard that he's a stupid son of a bitch. But what does that even mean?
Oh, Tucker.
Swanson. But Woodrow Wilson, again, the KKK, Woodrow Wilson also wrote a revisionist history of the United States, if you didn't know that, because he was a historian. No, there you go. A little bit of a little factoid for you. Revisionist history of the United States, and regularly showed Birth of a Nation. It was the first film ever shown in the White House. And he showed it a lot. I can't decide if Birth of a Nation was more effective, or which was more effective, Birth of a Nation or Reefer Madness. Better propaganda. It's difficult for me. Now, the best propaganda, quite obviously, doesn't come from the United States, but from Nazi Germany. But Birth of a Nation came earlier than that.
Do you think...
It was so soon after Reconstruction, too.
Do you think Nazi propaganda was modeled off of Birth of a Nation?
It was Hitler. Now, there's a lot of nuance to this, but Hitler's ideas certainly were modeled in some form or fashion after American imperialism in the 19th century. And so it's possible, I imagine, because German media from the aughts up to the 1930s certainly had a huge shift in the way that it changed. And it went more to the further extreme right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine again, I guess as long as you don't pronounce the H. Thank you, by the way, for that continual reminder, because I am always getting it wrong. But I think, Susan, I would need to dig a little bit, because there is a lot of nuance with that. Certainly propaganda is not new.
Yeah, but do you think, like, the methodology of the propaganda, like the as in the style of it?
Oh, yeah.
How closely linked are they?
They certainly use...
Using tactics?
Yes.
Okay.
The ideas of... Because when we talk about how black people in America were viewed, and still in some ways are, some of the words that they would use, one of them being mongrel, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or subhuman. These are certainly some of the terminologies that were used against Jewish people. Not the same words necessarily, and anti-Semitism is certainly older, if you will, than these ideas of at least current racism.
Right.
And that goes all the way back to the first century, and then of course into Gnosticism in the second centuries. But you can see it in the Gospels of Matthew, and very specifically in the Gospel of John in the New Testament in the Bible. But when we talk about the type of propaganda, there's a lot of similarities. Yes, a great amount actually. But Woodrow Wilson, he was in the White House again, KKK and Birth of a Nation, and wanted so badly to continue American imperialism and colonialism that he convinced Congress to send us unnecessarily to Europe in 1917 for a conflict which we had very little to do with when it comes to the conclusion of World War I. Just saying. Said the world must be made safe for democracy. It wasn't an idea of democracy versus fascism. But certainly, as he attacked somebody like Eugene Debs, socialist Eugene Debs, who was very popular in the early 1900s, this was the idea that capitalism and his idea of democracy must be seen as right. And Ben labels Woodrow Wilson as a progressive. Jesus Christ. As if the progressives of the early 20th century are anything like the progressives we see today.
Right.
Trust me, Woodrow Wilson didn't even want black people to have rights, much less for people to have something like health care. Yeah. Or women having, rights at all.
Yeah.
Like whenever women were gaining rights, maybe that's why he had a stroke. He then, Ben glosses over how the policies of, quote, small government presidents Warren G. Harding and Calvin Coolidge literally got us into the Great Depression. And states because FDR, in my mind, better of the Roosevelts,
yeah,
said, quote, I believe, sorry, see if I can do this right today. I believe, that's JFK. That was really good JFK. You think?
The one that you started out with.
With the I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the moon, not because, what did you say? By the end of this decade, oh man, that's a really good JFK.
Yeah.
Man, I bet that I could do that for a couple of years. Maybe I'll go down to Dallas, try to do a JFK around, like, what is that? 8th and Main, Houston Street. There's a big church there. Man. God. Is it still too soon? Is that too soon?
You know.
I hate JFK, by the way.
I don't know.
I'm not a fan at all of JFK. Susan can tell you that. But FDR said, I believe in individualism in all of these things, up to the point where the individualist starts to operate the expense of society, or at the expense, of society, as somebody who, quote, didn't actually believe in individualism. Are they still there? I don't know what I was talking about.
I have to go back to the...
But, oh yes, QAnon is still there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I was speaking more about JFK going to Dallas in November of 1963.
My chat doesn't want to pop up.
Oh.
There
You
we go.
know.
I'm sitting there like, what's going on?
Changed his life in ways that he will never be able to overcome. Too soon. Now he does, of course, and as always, take who he is quoting, at this point, the only president who has served more than 2 terms, and of the only one that ever will because the Constitution, out of context. And as always, and as creationists do with, I almost called him Richard Dawkins. Richard Darwin. I have his book. It's over here. What's his name? Charles.
I was like,
good old Chuck. Good old Chuck Darwin there.
You're having problems with the names today.
Yeah, that's uncommon for me.
Yeah, that's very rare.
But this is what FDR says in his next sentence. I've highlighted it. The overwhelming majority, there it is, of American businessmen do not believe in it beyond this point, beyond that point. We have all suffered in the past from individualism run wild. Society has suffered, I'm just going to keep with the JFK, and business has suffered. The people of America, of America, God, American imperialist, and then go over to Russia, pig dogs. Yes, I would like one Ukraine, please. Have no quarrel. God, that one is too soon with business. That one's not just too soon, it's current.
Yeah, that's
And then, well, the Ukrainians are like, we're out of Ukraines. Would you like one Belarus? Just half of it, maybe? How about a Macedonia? They insist only that the power of concentrated wealth shall not be abused. Interesting that FDR was not saying what Ben claims he is saying. Let's look at it again. We have all suffered in the past from individualism run wild. Society has suffered and business has suffered. The people of America have no quarrel with business. Don't lie about me. They insist only that the power of concentrated wealth shall not be abused. Seems like he's railing against big businesses and how they control the wealth and the power. Is that what it seems like to you, Susan? Like, okay, it took a long time for you to...
I know, that was the point.
Okay. It's just so odd, Ben, that you would continue in the next sentence. But then he goes on to show how FDR's New Deal, which, by the way, was an objectively good thing and led to something called the minimum wage, was apparently fascist. Yes. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, known fascist. For his source, he uses Jonah Goldberg's 2008 book, Liberal Fascism, The Secret History of the American Left, from Mussolini to the Politics of Meaning. Because yes, again, fascist. United States, Mussolini, fascist, fascismo, bald. Wait a second. I think my camera's going to die in a little bit because I didn't plug it in.
No.
Just real quick, liberals aren't fascist. Take us to our furthest extreme. We cannot be fascist. It's the opposite of fascism, in fact. It would be anarchy. Anarchists. It could be communism, but communism is not fascism, because pure communism, like pure fascism, or dictatorial totalitarianism, is not possible. Communal wealth is not possible in that purest form. I'm not going to get into the philosophy of that. But it would be anarchy. So stop using talking points and stop using your feelings and use facts. FDR, it was impossible for him to be a fascist. Okay, not impossible, but FDR was, oh my God. Facts like how scholar Roger Griffin said Goldberg's book was, quote, more of an exercise in polemics than a historical work, and as such, not really appropriate for academic consideration. Jesus Christ. Let me just give you, hold on, you got any water or something? How about like some, I don't know, some like stuff you put on burns? Its use of history was so shoddy and I'm having an issue today. Propagandistic. And its claims so frankly absurd that very few of them considered it worth taking seriously. When he says them, he considers other historians and scholars. And he is right. Goldberg links modern liberalism to the fucking Nazis. Because Hitler was a vegetarian, just like every liberal you might know, and because both embraced, quote, sexual freedom. If you consider today's liberal and progressive sexual freedom basically being told to have as many white children as you can because Aryanism is a thing. Yes, fascism. American progressives are Hitler. Griffin is not alone, by the way. Check the link for a short list of scholars who tear apart his works of Goldberg. And then look at those who are, how do you say, not scholars, who happen to agree with Goldberg and just happen to be on one side of the political spectrum that you would already probably assume. You're right. And oh my gosh, he gets into Great Society, A New History, written by another conservative historical revisionist. Now, let me just say this, Ben. I get it. You're writing propaganda. I understand. Liberals do the same thing. I'm no fan of Robert Reich because all he does is produce propaganda. It's not quite it. It's not, yeah. Propaganda. It's not the same as propaganda.
No, but propaganda.
That one's, yeah. But you've got to use at least some serious historians or scholars. This is all nonsense. It's all out of context. I hate to say this to you, but it's just lazy at this point. You skip over so much stuff and completely ignore the civil rights movement of the 1960s or any talk of Vietnam, which, by the way, was protested by, how do you say, progressives. But why, Ben? Why would you do that? Why would you skip over shitty President JFK? Why would you skip over the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in 64 and 65? Why would you skip over known socialist Martin Luther King Jr.? Unless it's to get to a certain president. And that's actually enough of that for right now, because I'm doing my best to make these a little bit shorter while also providing as much information and context as possible. Because if anything Susan can tell you is I am a huge fan of context, a huge fan of detail, a huge fan of ensuring that people know, breaking these things down as best as I can while ensuring that sources are shown. Don't believe what I'm saying. Go and read them. That's what I do. There's literally a part of the Divine Disbelief show called Deep Dive. Now, by the way, this is not the very end, because I want to bring something up that has nothing to do with this. But I do hope that you will join us next time as we discuss how Barack Obama fundamentally transformed America, which is literally the title. And no, it isn't because we elected the first black president and now there's no more racism. Woo, we did it! Insert popper thing here. Do we have that? We have the budget? No? Okay. There it is. Thank you for that. I think that was DJ Khaled, right? We're not paying you for that.
No, it was actually a reference to Superstore.
Nice. Thank you. Now, although maybe he does mention something like that, or Marxism or socialism, or probably. Enough of the Ben talk real quick. We are doing for Easter. I've never actually asked Susan if she wants to be a part of it. A video for Easter in which we need some a little bit help. Sure, a little bit help from some folks who might want to provide some voice work for us, which, by the way, pay you for. If it's work, we're going to pay you for it. It is an Easter video, and it's not serious. It's kind of like Easter. It's not serious. It's not a serious thing. It's a lot of fun that we've already kind of like the beginning of it, and Susan can tell you and stuff, and some of the things that we're using these Marvel zombies and what if zombies, like Funko Pops and stuff, and we're providing the voices for them, and it's got bunnies and chocolate. Depends on how you want to use those words, and it really is something that we were kind of working on last year, but I think I thought of for some reason, I don't know if I was dreaming, if I just woke up or was in some sort of trance, but imagined a different way of going about this year. And I think, Susan, how do you think that it's a good idea? Like,
I mean, yes.
Thank you. Good.
I don't know quite the whole idea yet, so I'm a little tentative in my yes.
But the like, because I told you like the beginning of it, right? Like with Iron Man and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's very lighthearted. It's not meant as an apologetic or a counter-apologetic. It's very lighthearted. There are a ton of zombie references. It's not stereotypical. It's just fun. Also, I need some black actors and voice work from a couple of black people, women, and men. Because I'm not gonna have a white person try to do T'Challa. Seems like that'd be bad.
Yeah.
Racist. It's like it's like a version of fucking like it's not necessarily like blackface, but I don't need somebody to appropriate a black person's character.
It's digital blackface.
Yeah, and so even if you might not be interested in helping with that, if you happen to know of anybody that you might recommend, please let us know. You can DM me, PDX Secular Guy. I don't know if you can DM Susan. I mean, you can DM Susan.
Yeah.
We want to talk about that.
I mean, more power to you, but
Yep.
I'm probably not going to answer.
I will answer, and I will
So don't DM me.
I will thank you, or I will say cool, and then I will not approach them because something problematic or something like that. Regardless, I'll say thank you, or if you just want to get involved. Easter is like April 17th or something. I forget. That's it. Oh yeah, a book.
A book recommendation?
Yeah, you should read this. It's called Begin Again. So you can't read it, so you can see it on there. You can see the side. It's called Begin Again. James Baldwin's America and its Urgent Lessons for Our Own. It is. The words aren't like small, if you will. SMOL. Guess if I was a cat, that's how I would say it and spell it. But we know what the result will be, and I cannot watch another generation of black children bear the burden of that choice. That's just a quick, I read half a sentence. I think that's it. I do have Divine Disbelief episode 60-ish?
I don't know.
Coming out very soon. There's a lot of really cool stuff. CPAC happened. And Jordan B. Peterson happened. And there's other things going on as well. But I think that's...
Oh, wait.
I think that's it. That's it.
Probably.
Thank you, Ryla and Amber and Russ and everybody else that may have come in and taken a little bit of a watch, longer than I thought it would be today. But I also went off script a little bit. So rare for me to do.
Like that never happened.
Ever. I've always done this without my glasses.
Why do you do it without your glasses?
Because I can see the reflection in my glasses.
So you can't see?
I can see, but I don't like seeing the reflection in my glasses.
Where are your glasses, Nathaniel?
Not everybody's vision's as bad as yours.
I will end you.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm going to end this video. Well, kind of. I don't think Zelensky's that good looking.